Jeffrey O'Brien here. Have you ever gone to HarmonSolar.com? Well, you really need to because everything you ever wanted to know about how solar power can save you big on your monthly electric bill is right there. It's online. Through your phone or through your computer, you can learn about tax credits, the equipment they use, look at how they do things for businesses as well as homeowners, see testimonials from happy customers, and I hear they got a pretty good podcast too. Check it out. Go to HarmonSolar.com. That's HarmonSolar.com.
Sports bettors, we've all been there. You have a live bet lined up, you check the odds one more time, place the bet only to see the bet delayed by the spinny wheel, line move, and your bet rejected. My name's Alex Kane, and I'm the founder and CEO of Sporttrade, Arizona's newest sports betting app. At the core of the Sporttrade offering is our probability-based odds. In other words, the Cardinals may be offered at 55% odds to win, a lot simpler than minus 125. Place your bet at 55% odds, and as your win probability changes, so does the value of your bet, giving you the ability to cash out with total control. And the best part, no spinning wheels. Live bets on Sporttrade are instantly accepted. Download Sporttrade on your iPhone today and use code 1580 to earn 10% cash back on every bet in your first week. Terms apply.
Sporttrade is regulated by the Arizona Department of Gaming. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP.
KQFN Tempe. Also transmitting on K257CD Phoenix at 99.3 FM and K240 EU Mountain Hills at 95.9 FM. Wherever you go, take us along. Listen to our live stream on our free Fanatic app. Download it today.
And welcome back to Beat the Book. No microphone problems today. And we are absolutely excited to get to today's show because we're going to be talking so many things. A lot of NFL football. We've got to talk about the Lions. We have got to talk about Dan Campbell and his Detroit Lions. Dan Campbell doing Dan Campbell things again. We're going to get to college football, talk about all the games coming up on New Year's. Well, we got one game tonight, but then the rest of the slate tomorrow. And we're also going to talk ASU, obviously. And then, of course, we'll wrap up the show with some of the picks today. We'll talk a little bit of Suns to get to everything. You are on the text line, 888-368-1580. Alongside me is our gambling expert, Dylan Cohen. And I'm Keon Rose. And Dylan, before we get to any and all of those things, who powers the show?
We are powered by Sporttrade. And if you have not already, make sure you download Sporttrade and use promo code 1580 to take advantage of their 10% cashback promotion on the new account sign up. And do not forget to join us this coming Friday. That is when Sporttrade CEO Alex Kane will be back on the show to roll out the Sporttrade weekly implied probability contest for the Arizona Cardinals game against the San Francisco 49ers. The prizes are a $100 Amazon gift card and $50 in cash sent directly to your Sporttrade account for you to place some extra wagers with. So make sure you get that Sporttrade app downloaded so you're all ready to go for the weekly implied probability contest, which will be rolled out this coming Friday. So now that we've got that out of the way, we need to talk a little Lions football and their coach, Dan Campbell, who we all know this man loves playing with fire. The Lions, despite all conventional wisdom and all common sense thinking, they followed through on everything Dan Campbell said that they were going to do. They brought the full team out, at least whoever was healthy enough to play and who was available. They brought them over to San Francisco, and the starters that were there to play, they played the entire game. And surprisingly, it did require the full effort of those starters. The Niners did win this game by a margin of just 6 points. Final score 40-34. Lions win. And, if you're San Francisco, I don't know if this Jake Moody guy is going to cut it for you. There were a couple of, field goals that he could have made, which, then would have given you guys the extra 6 points to, force that to go to overtime. If you don't want to point the finger at Jake Moody, you can go ahead and point it at Brock Purdy. And for as polished as Brock Purdy looks sometimes. I mean, he completed some incredible passes last night. Uh, you had Ricky Pearsall and George Kittle both going for over 100 receiving yards. So it's not that the man was not productive, but second half Brock Purdy is a problem. And if you happen to see the Arizona Cardinals game earlier in the season where they played in San Francisco, second half Brock Purdy is a big reason why the Arizona Cardinals won that game. Second half Brock Purdy is a huge reason why the Detroit Lions won yesterday. Brock Purdy had two pretty just bad timing interceptions that would have allowed the Niners to potentially capitalize on some drives that they had, and all it would have taken was one extra touchdown to tip the scales in San Francisco's favor. But instead, he gave the ball back to the Lions twice, and that contributed to the Lions being able to go down and score and ultimately win the game. Now, in general, the Lions winning, obviously, with all the starters playing, like not that surprising of an outcome. The bigger surprise was just that there's apparently no other adults in the room whenever Dan Campbell wants to, huff and puff and do something that isn't necessarily in the best interest of his team.
Yeah, I think it's not that there aren't other adults in the room. I think what the Lions have basically said is, hey, you built the culture, you built the team. We're just going to trust whatever it is that you're doing here. And it seems to be working so far. So we'll continue to trust it, even if it's risky. And, that on a one side of it, like that is good. Like you do want to let your coach do what he'd like to do. But on the other hand, that was a bad idea. And I don't care that the Lions actually won the game, though it did help some people out. Hefty Lefty on the text line says, Happy New Year's Eve, gents. Lions had me worried in the first half for fantasy football purposes. Thank God Dan Campbell doesn't believe or understand the concept of a meaningless game. The Moist one says, Purdy won me a fantasy championship last night. Let's go. Because I believe our league does not, I don't know if Moist one's talking about this league, but at least I know the Blender League doesn't exactly punish interceptions a whole lot, but does reward touchdowns.
Look, I mean, the man still had 377 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns.
He was productive. He was productive. It just also in terms of real life football, not fantasy, not gambling, but in real life football, the 2 interceptions were killer.
Absolute killers. I mean, just times where the Niners had all the momentum to respond to a punch that they just took from the Lions. We saw it twice. Brock Purdy just hands the ball right back, and each time it's Kirby Joseph. How convenient.
Yeah, and Kirby Joseph does this to a lot of people. He is one of the most opportunistic defensive players in the NFL. If you leave the football hanging out there in the air for him to grab, he's coming down with it. But I find it hard to believe just when you see it from all the various angles. Like Brock Purdy flat out did not see Kirby Joseph, just didn't see him. Like that's not acceptable for a guy that you're about to pay a lot of money to be your quarterback, to the point where it's like, I would still pay Brock Purdy. I'm not going to make a case that you shouldn't. He's clearly a good quarterback. But I do think that him and his agent are going to have a more uphill battle negotiating the kind of big deal that they could have gotten prior to maybe like the halfway point of this season, where things started to look like they were falling apart a little.
And I'm really curious, any of our Niners fans that regularly follow us, how do you guys feel about Brock Purdy right now? Because after a game like that last night, like if I was a Niners fan, like I would just feel super torn. I mean, there are some intriguing names that are going to be out there on the free agent market that you might be able to potentially save on how much you would ultimately have to pay the quarterback if you do decide to pay Purdy. Could you potentially get better production out of a Sam Darnold, out of an Aaron Rodgers, out of possibly a Kirk Cousins? I know all this kind of sounds a little crazy.
Yeah, I mean, Darnold obviously to me makes the most sense because I think he's shown us enough that if he's on a team surrounded by weapons and the team is well coached, he's good. I feel more worried or concerned about looking at Rodgers or Cousins as options because they're older for starters. Like if Rodgers plays, he's got maybe a year. So if you're the Niners, you could look at Brock Purdy and go, yeah, might I be able to find some greater production in one of those guys? I'm not so sure. But even if you could, the long term of having a guy there for 8, 9, 10 years in Purdy is just going to be better than a 1-year rental of Cousins or Rodgers. But so Darnold is the one that makes most sense there because he's still young enough. You can get a nice run out of him, but I don't know that Darnold is going to be that cheap either. So he may be comparable in price.
So it's going to be interesting to see the way that plays out. Brock Purdy had the torn UCL ligament in his elbow, and he had a surgical procedure on that. And then after this game yesterday, it turns out that he took a hit, and all of a sudden he was feeling some burning sensation in his elbow. And they're not totally sure what it is at this point. They think it's some nerve thing that's unrelated,
just a stinger, but that still can affect you for weeks depending on how fast everything repairs. So we got some of the Niner fans on the text line. Well, I don't know if Prison Wallet is a Niner fan, but we'll start with Niner-Napolis, who says, "I know you can't blame one guy, but in the 4 losses that the Niners, but in 4 more losses, Moody has missed an amount of kicks in which the points from said missed kicks would have ended up with the win." So Moody is definitely a big part of the issue here. Yeah, that's not your guy. And sometimes guys just need a change of scenery as kickers. For whatever reason, they just get the yips and just it doesn't work out. You cut them, they go to another team, they're fine. I'm looking at you, Graham Gano, specifically. But that happens all the time. Maybe you just move on from Moody, find another guy. It's not easy to find good kicking in the NFL, but it's not Jake Moody right now. And then you got Prison Wallet saying, "Brock is amazing, but we need to account for the meaningless game part. I don't even think he should have been playing last night." I am most definitely a 49er fan. All right, Prison Wallet, thanks for letting me know. And then Hefty Lefty, who I know isn't a Niner fan, says, "Better than having a burning sensation in his nether region," which fair, because if you get that from a football injury, just retire. Just retire. But thanks for the text, Hefty Lefty. So yeah, I think some of the Niner fans have spoken. They're not thrilled about Moody. I think protecting Brock Purdy probably makes a lot more sense there too. And I think not just physically protecting Brock Purdy, but mentally protecting him. Just throwing the interceptions is gonna, have some kind of a psychological effect, especially in a game he didn't have to be out there. The season is over. I do think that there is some level of concern there, but I also think that the Niners don't have the ability to have their record in hindsight say that they weren't trying. They are not in a position where losing gets them better draft picks or better draft capital, really. So playing Purdy gives them an opportunity. And again, were it not for Moody and the couple of picks that Purdy throws late, it gives them the opportunity to get some more wins in that win column and kind of come away looking a little bit better than the season has gone.
Well, if you're the Minnesota Vikings now, I mean, you have to be excited if you saw what this Lions defense looked like last night. Because I mean, the impression I got from it was, this is a beaten up, battered group of guys right now. They appeared fatigued. They were struggling. And look, I mean, they still gave up 34 points to the San Francisco 49ers. But, this could have been an opportunity for the Lions and for Dan Campbell to have given those guys some much needed rest, some much needed time to recuperate from all the other ailments and injuries that they've been dealing with from all the other games that they played during this season. But instead, Lions go full force into it. They get the win. And after the game, Dan Campbell goes out of his way to say he feels like he did the right thing by playing everyone.
Which he is going to say. I mean, he does, because I think he genuinely believes it. This is not I'm defending my situation. And we were kind of talking about this before the show. I think Dan Campbell feels absolutely vindicated in what he did last night because they won. And that's this one game. He's not thinking down the road.
To me, you can't make that statement yet, because the true test of it all is going to be this coming Sunday when you're playing in what is essentially the NFC North Championship game. And yes, if you go on to win that game, then you're not going to face any criticism, most likely, for the fact that you played all these guys in a meaningless game against the 49ers. But if you lose that game, I mean, sports media, the world, the public, all of Detroit, everyone's going to take their fingers, point them right at Dan Campbell and go, God, I wonder what this team would have looked like if they didn't have to get, and I mean, this feels kind of weird to say, I don't want to say drag through the mud, but playing an NFL football game is not a walk in the park. I mean,
no,
that
it is, as Tom Brady has said on multiple occasions, an organized car crash. You put your team through that in a game they did not have to be playing. Prison Wallet says about the Niners, the other part of my thought process here is that getting mad at the guys that actually could play last night, I don't think it's the right course. I know both teams were decimated, and I know quarterbacks that can do more with less. But damn, a meaningless game and a half and half of your team is hurt on the sideline. He's saying this from a Niner fan perspective. What will Lions fans think? One, and two, the Niners were injured and you needed your entire offensive arsenal to beat them. What do you think is going to happen next week with less rest, with more injuries, with more wear and tear? This is a bad idea. Dan Campbell did something that he feels very good about, but I think is very dumb.
Well, and to me, like, there's still potential to where, you know, the Lions could maybe win the game against the Vikings, but if they have some kind of an impact injury in that game, depending on how that occurs, you could still turn around and get some criticism over how you managed your roster and your lineup and how you threw away, you know, this almost perfect season that you guys just had, all in the name of, you know, we're going to avenge the NFC Championship loss from last year. You know, they beat us. We still feel something over that. And, you know, even though it may be better for us ultimately in our goals and desires of winning a Super Bowl this year, we're going to just put all that to the side because that just goes against the culture and who we are and how we run this team. And we don't care if these games have meaning or not. Like, we're all just playing. At some point, and this is where I mean, I couldn't believe what I was watching yesterday. In the second half of that game, there were instances, it happened once with Jahmyr Gibbs and once with Amon-Ra St. Brown. They both took hard hits. They got up. They were limping. You know, it's something that could have gone either way, where it could have spiraled into something bad or, you know, and it was the opposite. You know, they walked it off. They were okay. I mean, those are still things where after the game, I mean, you've got bruises, you've got something showing that you just went through, you know, some kind of trauma.
Your joints hurt, your muscles are going to ache. And where certain teams get to take some time off, you know, I mean, there are teams that clinched that will not be fighting for games next week. You're not 100% now. You're going to get into another battle that feels like a playoff game. Like, let's just be honest about what that game is. It's going to, like you said, essentially an NFC North championship game. It's going to feel like a playoff game. Meanwhile, Philly, they're resting. Washington, they're resting. LA, the Rams, they're resting. Like, everybody else is going to be chilling out. This can't possibly end in a Super Bowl playing this way.
I mean, not to mention this team that you're now going up against on Sunday. They've got a better offense than these Niners that you just struggled to beat. They've got a better defense than these Niners that you just struggled to beat. And you're coming into this game with less time to prepare because you just had to play on Monday night. This is now a short week for you.
Exactly. Niner-Napolis, by the way, on the text line with another comment about Brock Purdy. He says, Purdy set such a high standard for himself right away and is a high character guy. I think people look for faults. I like to keep it simple and appreciate what he's done in such a short time and think it's silly to not think he is the quarterback of the future for the Niners and will only get better and continue to grow and learn. He single-handedly saved the franchise from possibly the worst decision they made in Trey Lance. And yeah, and like every organization is going to miss on some. Like they get credit for also drafting Brock Purdy. You can't blame them for Lance and then not give them credit for taking the guy later on that wound up saving everything because they watched the film and scouted him too. Like and they liked him in the process enough to say, let's not let this guy get to post-draft free agency and let some other team scoop him up. We'll go ahead and take the guy. So yeah, and I don't think that Purdy is the guy that we're like picking necessarily for faults, but there is a level at which when the roster wasn't as healthy, he has not played as well. And that's a little concerning. That's like an eyebrow raise. That's not a ditch Purdy, go in a different direction. I like Purdy. I think that at a player that young, you got to build around him if he's shown that he can do it. And I think that he absolutely has. Hefty Lefty says the Dan Campbell remedy for cuts and bruises is rubbing some Copenhagen long cut on the wound. And Weso Grande says, it seems that if Dan Campbell were a poker player, he would go all in every time on 7-2 offsuit because that's his culture. good luck with that. I just don't think that that's a long-term play. And Dan Campbell's leaning into it. Then Prison Wallet with the last word here says, my money is definitely going on Minnesota next week. And I feel that way too.
That's exactly where I was getting to with this. The Vikings are 2.5-point underdogs, plus 135 on the money line, 42% win probability on Sport Trade. Get those bets in now. I have a feeling this line might flip in favor of the Vikings by the time that game kicks off. Now, real quickly, just wanted to shout out some things going on in the NBA tonight. Yesterday was LeBron James's 40th birthday, and tonight he plays at home against his former team, the Cleveland Cavaliers. And when he steps on the floor and that game gets tipped off, he will become the first person in the history of the NBA to play a game in his teens, his 20s, his 30s, and his 40s. So going to be a historic moment. LeBron himself has not actually played since that Christmas Day duel with the Golden State Warriors, where he went for 31 points. He's going to be coming into this one rested. He was dealing with a sickness. He's over the sickness. Hasn't played in about a week playing his old team. He scored 26 points against the Cavs back in November. And Cleveland's going to be, the Lakers are going to be a little shorthanded because they did pull off that trade recently to get Dorian Finney-Smith and Shake Milton. Those guys have not been able to practice yet with the team. I do not believe they are expected to play tonight. So that's just going to create more looks for LeBron, for Anthony Davis. LeBron's line on scoring tonight is at 23.5. You can take him for 23 or more to be conservative. Definitely wouldn't feel bad playing him maybe for 25 or more points if you're looking for a little bit more juice on that payout. In addition to that, I would also look to actually play the Cleveland Cavaliers on the spread. The Cavs are on a 7-game winning streak. Their smallest margin of victory over that 7 games is 10 points. So they just defeated the Golden State Warriors last night by 18. Yes, they are playing on the second night of a back-to-back. But with the way that the Cavs are shooting right now, with the production they're getting out of their bench, they can absolutely cover a 5-point spread in LA easily. The last thing I just want to make everyone aware about is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander on the Thunder. The Thunder are taking on the Minnesota Timberwolves, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, if you want to go ahead and bet on his points tonight, that is a good bet to make. Over his last 7 regular season games against the Timberwolves, which goes back the last 2 seasons, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has scored 30 or more points in each regular season game against the Timberwolves. So that's a streak that's lasted for the last 2 years, 7 straight games for him of 30 or more against the Timberwolves. I would look to play him for at least 30 or more points again against the Timberwolves tonight. And with that being said, I know we got to jump over to a break here, but when we come back, we're going to get through all of the college football playoff games that are going to be going on. We've got one tonight with the Fiesta Bowl, and then we've got the remaining 3 games tomorrow. So we're going to go through each one. We're going to give you guys what we feel are, the best bet to make. And we're just going to have a nice conversation. So stick around. You're listening to Beat the Book here on 1580 The Fanatic.
1580 and 99.3 The Fanatic.
Live and local.
Sports betting apps are not created equal. Dylan Cohen from Beat the Book here to talk about the Sport Trade advantage. With higher payouts, Sport Trade is the ultimate sports betting experience. Sport Trade is the first sports betting app that gives you the option to see the odds expressed as probabilities, and it's changing in-game betting forever. If it's easier to understand 52% probability of winning versus minus 108 odds, then Sport Trade is for you. With this percent odds feature, cashing out now makes much more sense. As the win probability changes, so does the value of your bet. And if you're an experienced bettor and prefer American odds, you'll get pricing closer to minus 106 versus the normal minus 110, coupled with instant in-play betting. No more spinny wheels. So download Sport Trade today to see the difference and beat the book. Use promo code 1580 to earn 10% cash back on every bet you place in your first week. Terms apply.
Sport Trade is regulated by the Arizona Department of Gaming. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP.
AZ Preps 365, your source for all the news, info, highlights, and more. Athlete news and interviews. Talk with coaches. Keep you up to date with the changes, moves, upcoming events, and more. AZ Preps 365, Arizona's ultimate prep sports show. If you miss a minute, you miss a lot. AZ Preps 365, Saturday mornings 8 till 10 on 1580 and 99.3 The Fanatic, and always on at 1580thefanatic.com.
Now open in Scottsdale. It's United Porte Custom Door Showroom with 40,000 Euro doors and hundreds of state-of-the-art designs and finishes on display, plus kitchen cabinets, bathroom vanities, and more, all at wholesale prices. Builders, contractors, designers, and yes, you. Come see our showroom on Greenway Hayden Loop. That's United Porte, Porte. Stop by to see and feel the quality. United Porte Custom Doors. Find us at uporte.com. That's uporte.com.
There's something you can do today that will impact all your tomorrows. Open an AZ 529 education savings plan. Contribute just $50 a month, and you'll have nearly $20,000 by your child's high school graduation, or as a great start towards your own education savings. Your money grows tax-free and can be used for college, vocational school, or workforce training. Learn more at az529.gov. Do it today for all your tomorrows.
This message is sponsored by the Office of the Arizona State Treasurer.
Hi, guys. Jeffrey O'Brien here. Have you ever gone to HarmonSolar.com? Well, you really need to, because everything you ever wanted to know about how solar power can save you big on your monthly electric bill is right there. It's online. Through your phone or through your computer, you can learn about tax credits, the equipment they use, look at how they do things for businesses as well as homeowners, see testimonials from happy customers, and I hear they got a pretty good podcast, too. Check it out. Go to HarmonSolar.com. That's HarmonSolar.com.
1580 The Fanatic.
And at 1580thefanatic.com.
Your home for sports.
Money your way.
All right, let's talk some college football, shall we? A lot of bowl games, and guess what? These games are playoff games. A lot on the line. ASU is involved in this. We're not going to necessarily start there, but we will wind up there at some point in this particular conversation. But let's start tonight with the Fiesta Bowl, Dylan, because we've got Penn State, Boise State, and there are a lot of options here. You can go money line, you can take the over or under. Player props as well. I'm a big fan of what Ashton Jeanty is about to bring to the table tonight. Maybe even if you don't like what Drew Aller might bring to the table for Penn State as well.
So, and just keep in mind, if you're going to be looking to play the player props for college football games, you would have to do it on some kind of like a daily fantasy platform. So like Prize Picks, for example, they have the player props. And these games are going to be good for the college football player props. You mentioned Ashton Jeanty. Right. I just looked at this on Prize Picks before we got on. I mean, you can look to take him for over, I think it was like 130 rushing yards in the game. Seems pretty reasonable with, the kind of production that he normally shows. If you want to bet on him to get a touchdown or 2 touchdowns, absolutely a safe play. If you go to the Beat the Book website where we post all of the different bets that we recommend each day, you'll see on there that I did post a alternate spread on this game to take Boise State to cover plus 14.5. Now, in reality, the line is set right now at 11.5. And I do believe Boise State could cover 11.5. The thing that's playing into the pricing of each of these games right now is the results of what happened in the first round of the college football playoff, where we saw each favorite just dominate, crush their spread, win by double digits. And I'm seeing some of that seemingly influencing the lines here. And if you think that, this whole system of how teams are ranked and, what the college football playoff committee did by assembling the group of teams that they did to be in this group of 12, if you think that they just got it all completely wrong and there's still this huge mismatch of talent at this stage in the tournament, then by all means, go ahead and get on Penn State. But the way I see it at this point, I don't think we're going to continue to see that. I think that the remaining teams that are left in this playoff are worthy of being there. That's going to show we're going to get higher quality games out of each of these big bowl games here. And when you're looking at Penn State and Boise State, Boise State still had a heck of a season. And the one Big Ten team that they did face, it was that team that's ranked number one, that's undefeated, that is better than Penn State. And they played a very tough, gritty game against them. They lost by 3. So for anyone out there that's looking at Boise State and is like, oh, they're in the Mountain West, they don't play anyone, nearly of the caliber of Penn State. Well, that's not true. They actually have played a team in the same conference as Penn State.
And played them close.
Better, and played them very close. So, I look at this spread right now, even at 11.5, and these double-digit spreads, they just don't feel justified. So if you want to be conservative, take that alternate spread that I put out on there, 14.5, give yourself a 2-touchdown buffer. But I don't really think you're going to need it. And my best bet on this, it's going to be to take Boise State to cover the spread. Keon, how do you see this game? Do you think Boise State maybe has a chance to win?
I think Boise State does have a chance to win. I'm actually picking them in this game. I think just straight up, in large part because they do have the offensive output to hang with anybody. I don't think they have necessarily the best defense, but when you look at Penn State, just offensively, they struggle a lot, to be consistent. So that's a big issue. They do have a very good offense, especially running the football. But when you look at the passing game for Penn State, 54th in the nation. Like, it's just not necessarily something that you're afraid of if you're Boise State. Of all the other big conference schools that you could be playing, if you're Boise State, you kind of have to like your chances in this one, because if it's going to be a game where it's their rushing attack versus your rushing attack, you have to feel really good about where you are. Penn State can be really good against the run. We'll see what they are like against a running back like Ashton Jeanty. But the other issue, I think, with Penn State is just James Franklin, man. Like, I like him. I think he's a good coach, but James Franklin in big games against opponents that matter, he shrinks. His team doesn't play up to their standard. They don't play up to their potential when they play these kinds of opponents. And I know that Boise State's coming out of the Mountain West. This is the toughest team that you could possibly see coming out of the Mountain West. And so if you're Penn State, I wouldn't overlook these guys. I think I'm going to take Boise State in this game just because I don't trust Drew Aller very much. I don't trust James Franklin very much. I think that their passing offense is just sketchy. Don't really trust it a lot. I'm leaning towards Ashton Jeanty and Boise State because I think that they have a very cohesive way that they play. They rely on the running game, and they play good enough defense to beat their opponents.
Well, and then you also have to add in the dynamic of, here's a team that just got essentially a month off, or, at least like a few weeks. If you're, one of these teams that got the bye versus, hey, I just had to play 10 days ago to earn my way here. So there's got to be something to account for in one team is fresh, another team isn't nearly as fresh. How does that impact the result? And, this goes back even to, what we were saying with the Lions and, what they chose to do, instead of sitting out some guys for their bigger game next week against the Vikings. There's plenty of times where you might be able to say, hey, it was bad that they didn't play because they built up rust and then they came out and they just weren't themselves. I don't think we're going to see much of that within these college football games. I think that the teams that had buys have been doing everything that they need to do to stay fresh, to prepare, and they're just going to reap the benefits of being able to have the time to recuperate, to, just work on themselves and get to a place where they can really give it their all in this game. So that is a big reason why I mean, with where the line is set right now on this, I mean, if you're going to give Boise State more than 10 points, I mean, by all means, I'm going to get on that team on the spread.
Here's an interesting stat about this game, by the way. Neither of these teams has ever lost a Fiesta Bowl.
Oh, wow.
So something's got to give.
Something's got to give. Something's got to give. I'm curious to see which team's fan base travels better too. I have to imagine Boise State. I mean, look, these are both like cold, winter, kind of markets. They're both going to love getting out of the weather, getting to a warmer place. Obviously, lesser distance for Boise State fans. But Boise State really, and I mean, I don't have these numbers in front of me. I mean, they are so just like aligned with that Fiesta Bowl brand. I mean, I don't know how many appearances they have versus Penn State. I'm assuming it's more.
I mean, maybe I'm not exactly certain. I'll have to look that up. But I will say this about Boise State. That was one of the things we were talking about. Like, why can't ASU be the team? represented in the Fiesta Bowl. And that's because Boise State and not just Boise State, that conference and the Fiesta Bowl have a relationship. They wanted Boise State. They got Boise State. So that's how we got to be here. And so this fan base is very familiar with, this is the time of year we go down, we watch our team, and they play in the Fiesta Bowl. That's just what they do. And here they are doing it again, and they're part of that habit. Of course, Penn State has the wealthier fan base, so I mean, they can travel further. They've got the money for it.
So we'll have to keep an eye on how that shakes up. That game is later on tonight. Let's get over to the big one here. ASU, Texas, biggest football game in the history of Arizona State University. And you take a look at this line, and it's a lot more the same of what we're seeing with Boise State and Penn State. It's currently at 12.5 on FanDuel. ASU is paying plus 360 on the money line. And I mean, I will say what I said before. Like, do I have bets on ASU to win money line, like for fun? Yes. I mean, those aren't the ones where I'm like really serious, like, oh yeah, this one's going to win. I see a lot of value on ASU just being doubted with the spread being where it's at, currently at 12.5. If you wanted to take ASU right at that line to cover, I think, giving them at least 10 points of a buffer is, really all you need to feel secure in ASU being competitive in this. If you want to push that to 14.5, just like how I said for Boise State, give yourself that extra layer of security. They've got a 2-touchdown buffer. But when you hear about just the narrative of this game and, how every other media outlet's talking about this one, it's just like ASU has absolutely no shot. I don't think that that's the case. I wouldn't say that they have absolutely no shot. It's just going to depend on what Kenny Dillingham has done with this team over the last few weeks to prepare for this game. And I do trust in Kenny Dillingham's preparation. I do trust in the confidence and the desire of this team to go out there and get it done. Quite frankly, if they do go out there and they get it done, at that point, I don't think there is a team out there that they can't necessarily beat on any given day. That's one of the beautiful things about the sport of football in general, is just that anyone can really beat anyone on any given day. But if you're going to give Arizona State a line that's double digits over 10, with the way Cam Scadaboo is running, with the way that Sam Levitt is playing, he went out, kind of took a shot at Quinn Ewers, said he's looking forward to showing why he's the better quarterback in the matchup. Cam Scadaboo had a comment about how absolutely no one can stop him. And look, for the kind of production and the season he's had, he, to me, is well within his rights to go ahead and just say whatever he wants. How that's going to, poke buttons with Texas, whether that's a good idea, jury's out on that. We'll see.
We'll see. I don't know that I love that idea either. We talked about this a little bit yesterday on the Blender. Levitt, Scadaboo. I understand that you're confident. I understand that this is an opportunity to take down Goliath, but I don't necessarily think you want the bulletin board material out there against the number 5 ranked defense in the nation. 5? No, 3. Sorry. This is an incredible defense. I don't know if I necessarily like that being out there, but yeah, I don't think this is going to be a blowout. I don't think Texas is going to lace them up and then dust the Sun Devils. I think this is going to be a game where the coach who's able to have his fingerprints all over this game is going to have the best win. Like, I don't think that this is going to be one of those games where like the players necessarily take over. Who controls the tempo of the game? Is it Sark? Is it Dillingham? And it's going to happen with the play calling on the offensive side of the ball for each coach. And I don't know if I necessarily give the edge to Texas, but I do say that Sarkisian has a little bit more experience doing this at the highest levels of college football. So there's like a little bit of an advantage there, but I still think Scadaboo has a good day. Like, even as good as this Texas defense is, and it's the 5th ranked rushing defense, like that, he's still going to have a really good day because like he's gone up against really good running defenses this season, and they just haven't been able to contain him. They haven't been able to slow him down. Iowa State was a really good rushing defense too, before Cam Scadaboo ran right through them. So like, I know that Texas is really good at this, but I think that it's just tough to contain Cam Scadaboo. I don't think the confidence is unwarranted. Maybe keep that in-house a little bit.
The Texas defense actually leads all of college football in forced turnovers. Meanwhile, the ASU offense is tied for second for the fewest amount of turnovers given up during the season. So It's going to be a really interesting clash of, those trends with the teams and seeing how that plays out. And then, for anyone out there that is a little skeptical on doubting like a line of double digits, I do just want to shout out, if you didn't happen to see it, Michigan Wolverines upset Alabama earlier today in the ReliaQuest Bowl. And Alabama was a 11.5-point favorite in this game. They lost by 6. So we're seeing this happen.
And again, like you look at the coaching, right? Like Kalen DeBoer is a really good coach and a really sharp offensive coach, but it was clear that Sharon Moore came out knowing, I don't really trust my pass game. If we got a lead, we're going to control this thing on the ground. So they got their 16 points early and then just kind of coasted until the end. And then, needed the defensive stand at the end to keep Alabama out of the end zone and got it. But that comes from knowing your football team. Dillingham knows his football team pretty well.
And honestly, seeing that made me feel very hopeful, about ASU's prospects. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, this team, they thrive on being the underdog. They thrive on being counted out. I mean, week after week, we saw it all season long. It didn't matter who they were winning against. They would still be counted out that next week. And if the narrative coming into this game was a lot stronger for ASU, I would actually almost be a little concerned, because at some point, when all of a sudden you're just used to being counted out and doubted on, and then things flip and everyone goes, no, you're actually the best out there. Sometimes those things actually get to you. And then the things that, made you have a chip on your shoulder and made you actually work harder, those things go away because now the narrative has changed. Luckily, that's not the case with ASU. ASU is facing the same, criticism that they've faced this entire time. It's what they feed on. And it's exactly what, if you want the Sun Devils to win, you want to see this. So that game is tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock. Really excited to get that one out of the way first. We don't have to sweat it all day long.
For me, whenever I have to watch a Texas game that's important and it's a night game, my stomach is in knots all day. Can't really focus on anything. I'm not really paying attention to anybody who's talking to me. Just get this thing done at 11. Win, lose, or draw. I get to move on with my day and just live my life on New Year's.
I am really happy with how that got ordered there as far as the games going on. The next game after ASU and Texas, it's the Rose Bowl, Ohio State and Oregon. And I don't have a whole lot, I guess, boiling it down to analytics or players or anything like that about, why one team's going to win over the other. I'm just looking at this line right now, and you have the number 1 team in the country that is undefeated, has not lost to anyone yet,
including this team.
They have no impact injuries that are driving them to potentially be an underdog in this game. And as of right now, they're a 2.5-point underdog. They are paying over even money on the money line. I know we've got some Ohio State faithful that follow us here on Beat the Book. We are very appreciative of, the fact that you do tune into the show. But I am sorry to say it, the best, highest value bet is going to be to back that team that hasn't lost a game yet and already beat this Ohio State team once and gets to go play this game in the Rose Bowl, which is a venue that you are very intimately familiar with.
Both of these teams have met each other a number of times in the Rose Bowl, and it's gotten silly in a variety of different ways. So if you want to talk about a game that has a potential for an unpredictable outcome, sure. This one, Ohio State scored 10 points against Michigan. I'm sorry. I just don't like your team. I know that saying this is going to cause all the Ohio State fans to come out of the woodwork. You're not beating Oregon. You didn't beat them before. Oh, but it was close. You still didn't beat them. And it may be close this time. You're still not beating them. The Oregon scores first and fast. Ohio State has always been, at least this season, too slow to get on the board. If Ohio State gets on the board first, okay, that might change some things for me. I highly doubt that, though. I do.
And just with how they're drawing this line right now and where this is priced, I mean, if you're going to get over even money on the team that is ranked number 1, that's already beat this Ohio State team before.
How is that possible? Except that the brand of Ohio State is so strong. Buckeye fans really believe that this team is going to somehow beat Oregon again, or beat Oregon for the first time. Okay. More money for the rest of us, I guess.
Well, and I think the Ohio State fans, they're probably just more eager to actually bet versus the Oregon side of it. And to me, that's the only way that I could really figure out, like what is the logical reason for why Oregon is not the favorite. And it's not because that's necessarily how odds makers see it. That's probably just the distribution of the money right now in terms of, who's wagering on which team. But let's just jump over real quickly to the final game. That would be the Sugar Bowl between Georgia and Notre Dame. Notre Dame is currently a 1.5 point underdog. Georgia is going into this game with their backup quarterback. And look, for you to have to switch gears and not have Carson Beck at this point, and now you have to give the ball to a guy that has extremely limited exposure of playing college football, I don't like your chances. I don't know a whole lot about Gunnar Stockton. I haven't watched him play a whole lot.
He's thrown 32 passes this season in garbage time mostly. He's a redshirt sophomore. Nobody knows that much about Gunnar Stockton. I mean, Marcus Freeman, the head coach of Notre Dame, was saying, we really have limited film to even we can't really coach our defense on what to do. We don't have tendencies. We don't have anything.
Right. I mean, what, you're gonna go dig up his high school reel to try and get something out of that to help you prepare for this? That's
and even Kirby Smart, they didn't have anything to really practice with, because until Notre Dame was able to win to get there, they didn't know who their opponent was. So there wasn't really anything for them to prepare for other than, hey, Gunnar, let's just get you some first team reps and some competition.
So, that is a pretty impactful injury that Georgia's going through. Notre Dame does have a significant injury on their defense, but I just see that as something that's going to be a lot easier for them to cope with versus what Georgia has to figure out. So for Notre Dame to be the underdog here, I like them on the money line. Currently paying -104 on FanDuel. So you're getting pretty close to even money there. Those are the college football playoff picks.
Yeah, that's what it is. We're going to take a look at the text line real quick. Hefty Lefty, I'm going to save your text for the other side of the break when we start to get back to a little bit more hoops. But Beer Bob on the text line says, I believe Boise State is 3-0 and Penn State is 7-0 in the Fiesta Bowl, making them a combined 10-0. Kyle G on the text line who's saying, please, Oregon, please beat them by 20. FOI. So we have those cleared up there. Hefty Lefty will get to you on the other side. You're listening to Beat the Book right here on 1580 The Fanatic.
1580 and 99.3 The Fanatic.
Live and local.
Paid for by Hims & Hers Health. Hims & Hers Weight Loss is not available everywhere. Compounded products are not FDA approved or verified for safety, effectiveness, or quality. Prescription required. Restrictions at forhers.com apply. Wegovy and Ozempic are not compounded.
With Hers, you can access doctor-trusted weight loss plans, like compounded GLP-1 weekly injections with the same active ingredient as Ozempic and Wegovy. Based on pricing through Hers, save up to 91% per month with compounded semaglutide, the same active ingredient as the name brand drug. Get started at forhers.com/start today. That's forhers.com/start.
Hey guys, Jeffrey O'Brien here. Did you know Harman Solar has gone super high tech? There's an amazing tool at harmansolar.com that'll give you an instant ballpark solar estimate using satellites from space. You just type in a little information, and within seconds, you'll have an idea of just how little money it takes to save big on that monthly electric bill. I did it, and within seconds, they measured my roof and calculated my savings. It's very impressive. Go to harmansolar.com and give it a try yourself. That's harmansolar.com.
Do you know about 211 Arizona? It's a free service to connect you with resources anywhere in Arizona. Housing assistance and eviction prevention, transportation and ride services, healthcare benefits, food resources, and even utility bill support. Talk to a live operator in English or Spanish, 24 hours a day, every day of the year. Just dial 211 or visit 211arizona.org. Get connected, get answers, and get the help you need. This message is sponsored by 211 Arizona.
It's fall football season, and Kasai Japanese Steakhouse is doubling down, now with 2 Valley locations. When it comes to Asian cuisine, no one does it better and more authentic than Kasai, where talented Teppan chefs create the food, the fire, and the fun of teppanyaki. Kasai Japanese Steakhouse isn't just dinner, it's dinnertainment. A memorable dining experience where a delicious 7-course meal is paired right at your table with flair. It's a perfect choice for celebrations, date nights, or a night on the town. Choose from over 30 different items and combinations of teppanyaki, Asian fusion, and innovative sushi. Happy hour is always always on fire and offered daily with specials on their Asian-inspired comfort food like Korean steak tacos, Mongolian barbecue ribs, and signature Wagyu beef sliders. Always a memorable dinner, or catch the game and a bite at the bar at Kasai. Now the 2 locations, Scottsdale Road in Thunderbird and in Peoria at the 101 in Northern. Go to KasaiTeppan.com. That's Kasai Teppan.com, or search Kasai on your mobile phone.
Will Shakespeare here. Back in my day, I invented over 1,700 slang words like swagger, bedazzled, and my personal favorite, besmirch. But even I have trouble understanding slang words like yeet or bougie or
this is fire.
Actually, it is extremely smooth Shakespeare vodka.
Okay, boomer.
See what I mean? But there is one word that describes the pure quadruple distilled spirit crafted from an 8th century Polish recipe the first time you try it.
So lit.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Shakespeare vodka. So lit.
Your home for sports.
1580 and 99.3 The Fanatic.
So on the text line, the hefty lefty, referencing earlier when Dylan was talking about some basketball, said, who needs practice when your job is defense and hitting corner threes? Get on in there and be somebody, Dorian. So that...
Well, and he's coming off the bench, too.
He's
not even started.
Exactly.
So.
But, you know, that kind of leads us into our NBA conversation right now. We've got the Suns and we've got the Grizzlies tonight. And here is an opportunity for the Phoenix Suns to be in a bit of a get-right game. You got Devin Booker coming back. What else do we need to know?
Actually, just wanted to follow up on that real quickly.
Okay, yeah.
Just got reported that Dorian Finney-Smith and Shake Milton are going to play tonight against Cleveland.
There you go.
Still like Cleveland to cover the spread. They've just, I mean, Cleveland is a juggernaut right now. I mean, there's just no denying it. When you're beating teams by the margins they're beating them at, you know, with the winning streak that they're having. So you can still trust in that, but we are going to see those new Lakers tonight. So that will be interesting to see how that plays out. Now let's talk Suns for a bit, because unfortunately Phoenix Suns are back in another tailspin. They have lost 5 out of their last 6 games going back to December 19th. And coming into this game tonight, a little bit of bad news, but we do have some good news too. Royce O'Neal is expected to be out for the next 10 days due to that ankle sprain that he suffered against Golden State. And then Grayson Allen expected to come back tonight, as well as Devin Booker. So losing, you know, one contributor in Royce, which is unfortunate, but getting a couple back, which we desperately need. And then the Suns are going to be taking on the Memphis Grizzlies tonight at home. And the Grizzlies are coming into this one pretty banged up. No Ja Morant, no Zach Edey, no Brandon Clark, and no Jake LaRavia as well. So those are all 4 guys that, you know, when they're healthy for Memphis, they're playing, you know, pretty decent minutes. Those are big contributors for them offensively and defensively. So Suns, as long as Booker is truly back and as long as we do have Grayson Allen, Suns should absolutely have the upper hand in this matchup. If you take a look at the line right now, Phoenix is currently favored by 5 points. And right now on the money line, minus 198, that's trickled up. It was hovering around minus 175 for most of this morning. But, you know, if you want to look to try and back the Suns here, that would be a good move. This should be a get right game for Phoenix. Because quite frankly, I mean, if we get these guys back and we lose this one, I don't even want to speculate at that point.
My level of optimism is done. All the things I'm optimistic about this team when they're healthy. And I understand it's a big if, and I understand that there are just so many issues around the health of this team that believing that they can be healthy for the postseason is already a tough ask. But I do feel confident that when they're healthy, if they're healthy, there isn't anybody that they should be afraid of. If they lose a game like this, it's a little hard to hold on to that particular belief set just because of how good the Western Conference is. Like if the Grizzlies, while they're dinged up, missing a couple of stars, and you're getting your big 3 back, you know, obviously Royce O'Neal is a glue guy, as we've talked about before, and a factor in terms of playing good defense and just being someone that genuinely on the floor everybody else can trust when he's out there.
that shouldn't hold you back if you got your big three.
And keep in mind, no Yusuf Nurkic still. There was a little scuffle that happened last Friday in the Dallas Mavericks game where Yusuf Nurkic got into a bit of a conflict with Najee Marshall, and PJ Washington tried to step in and led to all three of them getting ejected and suspended. Yusuf Nurkic has 2 more games left on his suspension. And again, I mean, with Zach Edey out, shouldn't really make a difference for us. We have Mason Plumlee, we have Oso Ighodaro. This is going to be about getting the big three back in there, playing together. And the biggest thing with the Suns to me is like, we have to find our confidence, because when the season started, like the first 12 games of this season, I don't think there was another team in the NBA that was playing with the kind of confidence that the Suns had. And that was why easy. Well, and that was why you kept seeing us, we would have these close games, 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Maybe we're down, maybe we're winning by a little bit. But, when things got tough, we would still come out on top. We would hit the difficult shots. We would stick together as a team. That unity, it has just not been there for basically this entire month. And that speaks a lot to the current record of the Suns in the month of December, which is 4-8. So not good for the Suns there. Look for them to get right tonight. You can take the Suns on the money line. I would also recommend looking to bet Devin Booker's assists. If you take a look at his line right now on assists, it's currently sitting at 5.5. He's averaging over 6 assists per game so far this season. He has, in his last 5 games, 4 of them, he got 6 assists or more. So it's currently paying plus 102. You can look to take Devin Booker for 6 or more assists in this game. That's all I got, Keon.
And the one last thing to note, the Grizzlies averaging 123 points a game, but without those stars, I think that number gets to be a more reasonable point. That's going to do it for us right here on Beat the Book, right here on 1580 The Fanatic. Make sure to check out the Beat the Book post on the 1580 The Fanatic website. Click on the Beat the Book logo. You can see all the posts for today. The Daily Blender's coming up next, and we will see you all after the new year.
Hi, I'm Mike Ham with NFL Network.